We'll take a break. Yeah. Sounds like it. It's still coming over the wall. Not bad. It's coming. It is.
I'm sure it is.
It's beautiful. Hold on. Okay. We don't have any more till 9:40.
Okay.
Hello.
Corner Harbor Beach Lighthouse. Yeah, it's floating, so take it easy. Watch these stairs here. There's a low slant to it. Today I'll let you get in and out of the wind.
Okay.
When you come out waiting for the boat, I'll give you a story about the break wall and stuff like
Okay.
that. How's that?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Looks like you're doing some restoring.
We're rebuilding the fog signal building that was
okay.
taken down in '67. It's going to be a shop and restroom and stuff.
Oh,
like
okay.
that. Go ahead in. That's in there.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are just the two of you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, welcome to the galley. Are you from the area?
Livonia.
Oh, okay. I raised my family in Farmington Hills, so
Oh.
my daughter-in-law teaches at Churchill High School.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She went to Stevenson.
Oh, you went to Stevenson? That's okay, too. Welcome to the galley. My name is Annette, and I'm going to tell you all about the area here that was the kitchen. This is where the lighthouse keeper and his assistants prepared their meals, and they shared their meals, made out their schedules. It was generally like a family room. But before I forget, I'm going to ask you if you would please sign in at our register, just one of you for both of you. When the lighthouse was given to the city of Harbor Beach, it was given with the stipulation that it would be used as to extend history, you know, to share the history. And so this kind of shows that that's what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
When the lighthouse was closed after, well, the lighthouse keepers, let's start reading. The lighthouse keepers lived here. There was usually a lighthouse keeper and one or two assistants. And they used to go back and forth to shore to get their supplies. They'd go to rowboat, and they kept their food here in an ice box. And when the ice was harvested in the harbor during the winter months, packed in sawdust and stored in ice houses on shore. Then they would go back and forth and bring their ice and their supplies, and frequently they had family that lived in Harbor Beach, and they would bring additional supplies out, soups, etc. But it was a federal job. They were paid by the federal government, and as such they were allotted so much food per man all the way from, say, 200 pounds of beef annually per man down to 4 quarts of vinegar annually per man. I mean, they allotted right down to their salt and pepper. It was amazing. But it was a federal job, and it was guaranteed income, so it was a sought-after position. So lighthouse keepers kept it for as long as they possibly could. Now, our lighthouse is unique. If you take a look, our central support system is a chimney. Most lighthouses have a circular staircase. Have you been in any other lighthouses?
Oh yeah, we've been.
And they have circular staircases, don't they, that go all the way up, and that's their support system. But ours is a chimney, so what that does is we have a lot larger living area.
Oh yeah.
And when you get up to the sleeping quarters, because our stairway goes on the outside, it's there's much more privacy because there's actually cast iron doors on the bedrooms. So this type of setup makes it much more comfortable. Now, when the lighthouse keepers were no longer under the auspices of the federal government, it was turned over to the Coast Guard. This became a Coast Guard station. And the coasties lived out here, and they usually have, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks on duty at the lighthouse. In the late 1960s, they built the Coast Guard station on shore, and the lighthouse was abandoned. So it was left empty for over 20 years. Well, when the Restoration Society came in to restore the lighthouse, they found that this east window had leaked, and it had rotted the floor. And so they started to remove the flooring. And they removed and removed and removed, and they got all the way down to the studs. And what they found was that the original floor was southern yellow pine. But because of the rotting, they put tongue and groove maple over it, and they painted it red. Then they put plywood, and they put tile, and then they put more plywood, and then they put tile. I don't know why they didn't fix the window first, but in any event, they took it all the way down to the studs. Repaired the window, of course, and then they had southern yellow pine milled to the same specifications as the original lighthouse. So the floor we're standing on is yellow pine, exactly as it was when the lighthouse was built. The furnishings are not necessarily native to the lighthouse, but they are to the period of the early 1900s. You'll notice on the wall, that cross-section there looks like it might be a map, but it's not. What it is a cross-section. They left so that you could see what the walls were like and the many layers of paint that were on there. I mean, they used blue as obvious, and brown, white, green, pink. They used so many colors, it was unbelievable. The only thing we can think is that it was leftover paint from whatever they had or whatever the government gave them. Over here on this wall is a photograph of the lighthouse as it was as members of the Coast Guard. The top picture is from the 1940s. And the bottom is from the 1950s. Last year, we had a group come through, and a young lady walked over to the picture, and she said, "Grandpa, come here." And he went over and looked at the picture, and he said, "That's me."
Wow.
The gentleman in the upper right with no shirt on was Alex. And he was a coastie here in the late 40s and early 50s. And he said at that time, yes, the bathroom was located in the fog signal building. Eventually, they did put a shower downstairs in the basement. We do have a basement, and it's dry. We don't have electricity or running water out here, but there is a battery. The battery packs are down there for our solar power that maintains our light. Over here is a cross-section. You'll see photographs of the fog signal building. It was torn down in the late 1960s, and it's in the process of being rebuilt. Hopefully to as close to specifications. They have the original building specifications as it was when it was originally built. They even had to have the wood specifically milled because it was built with 2x4s, and today they don't make 2x4s apparently. They're cut smaller or something.
Right, yeah.
So they had to have it specially milled to be exactly 2x4s. So they've done everything. There's no plywood. They've done everything to keep it exactly as it was when it was originally built to the best that they possibly can. We heated and cooked, or they did, with stoves like this and coal. There's one in the basement, and there's one in the sleeping quarters. There's none in the workroom, but it provided good heat and chimney, and they had ventilation that went up the stairs as well. So it was relatively comfortable for them here. Now the lighthouse was open as long as there were ships traveling up and down the lakes. Any questions?
Just earlier on, you mentioned the ice house. Did that ice stay like all through the whole summer?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
There were 3 ice houses. The ice would be packed in sawdust, and the buildings were heavily insulated, and the ice is packed in.
Oh, okay.
So yes, it would stay all
Oh,
summer.
that's amazing.
I know.
I always wondered about that because
Yeah.
I never asked. So I figured it better.
Well, when I was a kid, I remember the Iceman coming.
Do you? Wow.
I know I should not admit to that, but I do remember the Iceman coming. He used these tongs just like these
Okay.
to
Yeah.
lift the ice and haul it up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing how they functioned. It was amazing how they built all of this in the 1800s, because they certainly didn't have the equipment and everything that they have today. I mean, the break wall itself took 11 years,
Right.
but it's lasted. The lighthouse is 132 years old, 133 years old. It's held up. That cast iron. Here, this will show you how thick the cast iron is.
Hi, come on up.
Hello.
Two of you?
Yeah, just 2.
All right, well, welcome to the keeper's room. Now, this is, of course, where the keeper slept. The bedroom down below was for the assistant keeper. The keeper stayed here because it's closer to everything he needed to do during the night.
Yeah.
Now, you can see the cutouts here in the floor. One gives you an idea of how the kit was put together. This lighthouse was originally a kit that was just pieced together. The other cutout shows a hole. You can see a hole in the ceiling. This is where the weights and cables came through. Now, in order to rotate the lens, it sat on a gearwork of weights and cables, kind of like a grandfather clock, but without the pendulum. That allowed the very, very heavy 1,000-pound lens to rotate. Every 4 hours, the keeper had to go up to the top and rewind those weights and cables so that the lens could keep on rotating. Now, every 4 hours, I don't know how he got up, but maybe there was an alarm that went off when the cable hit the bottom level. I don't know. Now you've heard about how he had to row every place, just rowboats.
Right.
They didn't have motorized boats. There were also lights on the North Gap that you passed coming out. There were 2 lights there that were coal-fired. And over across this gap, there was a light. There still is a light there today. But that one used to be coal-fired also. And he would have to row his boat every day over, make sure that the coal was stoked, and make sure everything was operating properly for those lights. And they were lights that marked the entrance to the harbor. Now, one of the main problems was boredom and everything that went with it, drinking, and just because of the repetitiveness of the job.
Right.
So the Lighthouse Keepers Association came up with this great idea of a traveling bookcase. They thought if we can get books to these guys and rotate them, that should help a lot. So they came up with the idea of a traveling bookcase. Now, they figured the inspector could rotate them when he went on his rounds. So bring the one from Port Sanilac here, the one here would go up to Point Barks and so forth around, on his inspections. They're really, really, really rare. We have an original. It was in this lighthouse. There's a lot of banging going on because of the wind today. Doors are banging. Anyway, we have an original. It was original to this lighthouse. The only reason it escaped the Coast Guard when they were cleaning out back in the 40s was because it was attached to the wall up in the gallery and painted white. So it kind of blended in. They thought it was into a bottle chest or something. Our restoration crew took it and stripped it. And you can see, if you look real hard, it says U.S. Lighthouse Establishment.
Oh yeah,
Library.
library.
And there's a
Yeah.
library.
Number 194.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And this is an original. Very rare.
Wow. And they found all the books in there with it?
No, they
Oh,
didn't
okay.
find the books. The books were put in there. But those are books that would have been read back
Yeah.
in the day.
Wow.
So that's our pride and joy here. And now, do you have any questions on this level?
Yeah.
Okay, follow me. Okay, this is where the keeper did a lot of maintenance on the Fresnel lens during the day. He did work. This was his workroom. You can see the ports all the way around. They're called port lights in a lighthouse. I'm not sure why. Portholes on a boat, but port lights in a lighthouse.
Oh, that's funny.
You can feel the great breeze coming through in the light because there was no electricity or anything like that. Now, that pesky inspector, if he came around, there were very strict rules. First thing at the crack of dawn, the keeper had to put his uniform on. That was grounds for firing or being written up if he didn't have his uniform on. He'd have to come up here and go up to the gallery and do some light on work on the lens. Now, before he could go up there, now whether it was 30 degrees or 90 degrees, he had to have his wool uniform on. Wool was the common fabric back then. Before he went up there, he would have to put a long linen coat on over his uniform. Not so much to protect it from dirt when he was going up to the gallery, but to protect it from scratching the lens. Wool was very scratchy back then. Brass buttons down the front of the uniform could scratch the lens. So they were instructed not to wear jewelry or watches or anything like that also. He would then have to go up this ladder, snuff out the wick when he got up to the lens room, pull a heavy canvas curtain around the whole room. And that was so it could cool off during the day and protect it from the lens from the sun damage during the day. He would then bring the lantern down, trim the wick, fill it, and we used pork oil to burn back then. And take it back up, put it in place to light the next night. Now the only source of light in the lantern I'm talking about that he brought down every day was very similar to something like this. It's just an oil burner. It would have been a little bigger in brass, on the bottom, but this was the only source of light that they could see almost 20 miles up the lake. Just because of the way the lens reflected.
Wow.
Was cut. When he took this back up and put it in place, he would have to clean the lens with a feather brush because so as not to scratch it. And then a soft cloth after that if it was still dirty. Pork oil built up a lot of ash as it burned.
Yeah.
So. And he had a certain amount of time he had to have this done by, and then he could continue on with the painting and the cleaning and the chores and the rowing and the going for servicing the other lights and everything in his day. Now, over here, we have another original. This is called a radio direction finder. This was in our fog signal building before it was torn down. Now, there are 10 silver marks around the dial. Every time the long hand hits a silver mark, a radio signal would go out. Now they had radio signals at every lighthouse so that boats out in the lake could pick up on 3 of them at the same time and triangulate their position. So it's kind of like a very, very old-fashioned, maybe the forerunner of GPS, using radio signals instead of satellite signals. So this will probably go back down in the Fox signal building and get the new one built. Over here, we have, well, of course, the tools, some of the tools. They wouldn't have been displayed on a board like this. There was a special toolbox for everything. There was even a list of all the tools that had to be in it. And once again, grounds for firing or dismissal, you know, or being written up if tools weren't put away and the inspector came along. Now over here, a little excitement in this harbor, a little history. As you may know, storms come through all the time. They still come through, bad storms. Some ships took refuge in 1920. Now, a man fell overboard off of one of the moored ships in this harbor. The Coast Guard had to be called to come and rescue him. While they were out here, they saw another boat really, really sitting low in the water. They thought it was going to sink. So after they were done helping the guy that fell off, they boarded the other boat. Well, the crew members saw them coming and took off. The captain was fast asleep down below, so he didn't have a clue what was going on. They boarded the Bird of Michigan, that's the name of the boat. A very strange looking boat. They found 1,000 cases of Canadian beer on board. The start of Prohibition, 1920.
Wow.
Now this is the keeper. They tried to burn it. They took it to a field and tried to burn it. This was the keeper at the time, Archibald Dickinson, and supervising the unloading of the boat. Very weird looking boat, very strange. Anyway, supervising that was this guy right here, the chief of police, was my grandfather.
Oh, really?
So, a little excitement there. Makes you wonder what else happened that we never did here.
Right, yeah.
Over on the far wall, we have some of the keepers that served here. You see them with their families, but their families couldn't stay out here. They could come and visit, but they couldn't stay. It was strictly a stag life. Can I answer any more questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, Brian is up.
Watch your head, buddy.
Yep.
Watch your email, all right.
All right.
This one over here. Over here. This. All right, stand right there. Now look up. Now that's probably going to be your best view of the, the replica. That's the fourth order Fresnel lens. $60,000 worth of.
That's what she was saying on the shore. Yeah, that's amazing.
Very cool.
Now, if you go to the Great Museum, you'll be able to see the original.
That's what she said. Some of my tickets will give me a discount or something like that.
Here's that you talked about how they, in the old days they rotated with the chain.
Yeah.
This is where the chain came through.
Okay. Down through there, I guess.
Believe me, on your right, there's a head dangling. That's why I got the chair down there. So watch your head when we go out.
Okay.
And it's not nice, actually nice out here. You doors keep slamming. My wife is the lady just below us, Diane, and then Scott, the one on the deck, when you first meet them. They're from Harbor Beach. They know kids when they grew up. They used to come out here. They would jump off from here.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
When you got on board, wait, I want to check this out. Hold on a minute. All the way to the south down here is 3 miles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
From here to the bathing beach is 1 mile. like the 4th year. One of the reasons it's closed, you look up at the, yeah, you can see it.
Oh,
Above
the
the tree
windmills.
line, you see
Yeah.
all the windmills?
Yeah.
Yeah. See that one white building on land there?
Yep.
And then look on out, you can see those black piers coming on out.
Yeah.
That there is the old Coast Guard station garage.
Oh, okay.
And the station itself used to be out on the furthest landing. I got a picture of it.
Her.
But the thing is, look at the wave action on this.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
breaking off the break wall.
Right.
And this picture's taken from the shore.
Want me to hold on to this?
The two main industries of Harbor Beach, the one on the right is Dow Chemical, Agri-Science. The one on the left is Sensuit. You got your bathing beach, which is now Lincoln Memorial Park. And then the pier coming on out, when it's been going up, that pier was twice as long as what it used to be. What it is now. All on the shoreline is a private resort, Harbor Beach Resort. They got their own bathing beach, their own, that one building, the swimming pool, 9-hole golf course, and a lodge. When my wife's dad, growing up as a kid, caddy for a gentleman that owned one of the cottages. His name was Henry Ford.
Oh, really?
That people, you can't buy in there. That's all hand down from.
Oh, okay.
Let's come on over here. Yeah. There's a shipwreck in the harbor here. Look up shipwreck Harbor Beach, or if you remember Dorcas. But then there's a whole video of it going. Oh, okay, look at, there's a tug barge right here. Heading north.
Yeah.
There was another one.
Here's over, yeah, he's over there.
And that's a conversion. That's a tug, believe it or not, pushing a conversion old freighter. I've sailed on the Great Lakes. That's me, long time ago.
Oh, wow.
Long time ago. But, so there's shipping lanes out here, and those guys are upbound, so the shipping lane is 6 miles out. Downbound is 9 miles out, and fog on.
Oh, okay. So they don't use this anymore?
This still works. It comes on at night and it still rotates.
Oh, does it?
But it's more navigate recreational.
Oh, okay.
I got a great photo thing. If you guys want to stand here, I'll go and take your picture through the port light. You guys stand here and look.